In this video, I take a look at an abandoned railroad bed near Phillipsburg, New Jersey. I look at an old signal tower, an abandoned bridge, and a cut that used to include a section of double track. If anyone knows what this railroad was, please let me know in the comments below. And if you like the video, feel free to leave a like or to subscribe to see more content like this. I'm on this abandoned railroad here and actually found this very impressive spot. There's this rock face here. Tracks lead off into the shrubs there and down that direction. And then there's this little cove in here, which I'm going to go explore in a second. But the tracks themselves, you can see they've been out of use for quite a while. There's rocks and down trees all over them, and shrubbery growing in the middle of the tracks. And way down there, there's actually a tree, a bunch of trees growing out in the middle of the tracks. So I don't know when these tracks were last used. Cove in here, some rocks, some gutter language, a little bit of litter, and that's a fence which likely leads to, there's a park over back there, so that fence likely is the boundary of that park. I followed the trail a little bit further and I came across this massive gantry. And it's just sitting in the woods here and it's covered in vines and trees, and it must be, I'm going to say 20 meters or so, well 15 meters plus high and maybe 20 meters across. And on the top there's actually a railing, and looks like somebody would have been able to stand on there. So it's probably something for loading and unloading things from the train. Here's another view of the tower. I actually just met a guy who said that this was a signal tower for the train. And it actually makes sense, because if you compare this to a signal tower you see when riding like an Amtrak or something, so this looks quite similar to it. So it would have gone over the tracks and would have had the red, yellow, and green lights indicating whether the train can actually pass. And it's interesting that they just forgot about this and left this here rather than trying to disassemble and scrap it. I also wonder what that is over there. Oh, this might have been some type of electrical box associated with the train signal. This is a bridge that the railroad used to go over. So the railroad would have came down here. That was where it was before, where that rock formation was, and the signal lamp is down that way, the signal tower. So this is a small railroad bridge, and it's completely overgrown with trees. And there's a road down there which looks like it's actually still in use. There's no shrubbery or debris on it, so the road under the track is still intact. It's just the track above the road has been removed, but they kept the bridge. And there's the parking lot. And further down, it looks like we've reached the end of the tracks. The tracks further on are entirely covered with overgrowth and trees. And some of those are substantial trees going right in the middle of the track. I've also noticed this random tie here that was somehow deposited on this tree. There's also this metal drum that looks like it's filled with some type of charred material, and it's completely rusted away. The tracks back that way are a bit disheveled. Some of them are broken. The right track looks like it's still in relatively ordered shape, but the left track has just been completely shattered and broken back there. And if you look at the tracks themselves, there are some remnants of rail ties in them that are rotting away, like this one right here. And there's a park over there. There's a skateboard ramp and some guy with a dog. Cool. Looking at the area in Google Maps, this is the path of the railroad bed. This right here is the bridge I showed you. And if we follow the path, we notice that it intersects with this railroad right here, which is actually still operational. And it travels along the path of the Delaware River. I believe that this was at one point, the Belvidere and Delaware Railroad, and it's now operated by Norfolk Southern. Now, if we follow this railroad down, we notice that it intersects with the railroad from this bridge here. This bridge was built by the Lehigh and Hudson Railroad, and the Lehigh and Hudson Railroad used the Belvidere and Delaware Railroad for a while before it branched off and traveled through northern New Jersey. We also noticed these two railroad bridges here. This bridge here was the Central Railroad of New Jersey's bridge over the Delaware, and it's now being used by Norfolk Southern. This bridge here used to carry the Lehigh Valley Railroad over the Delaware River. It's now abandoned. But if we follow this railroad down here, we notice that this is the path of the railroad that I showed you over that bridge, and it looks like this railroad could intersect with the railroad with the Lehigh Valley Railroad. So it might be the case that the railroad bed was part of an interchange between the Belvidere and Delaware Railroad and the Lehigh Valley Railroad.